The journey into uncharted territory had just begun. At every turn lurked a new design, the next great idea, and the freedom to do so. It was a time to rewrite records and welcome new faces, a place where hope and fear shared the same landscape. Technology had sparked a new age of spectacle and speed. Only one era molded heroes into racing immortality. The 70s, a decade of legends. After surviving a decade of change, rear-engine racers stormed into the 1970s looking for the next big advantage. While A.J. Foyt was aiming for the record books, 32 others were seeking their face on the Borg Warner Trophy. (1970) marked the 25th anniversary of Tony Hulman's purchase of the Speedway. To celebrate, the first $1 million purse was up for grabs. After missing the 1969 race with a broken leg, a healthy Al Unser came to Indy with the coolest car in the field, the Johnny Lightning Special.
I can remember when Val Parnelli told me that we had a toy company sponsoring us in '70. I laughed, but then when we got the car painted, I looked at it and I says, boy, that thing's pretty.
The team was a perfect fit. 1964 winner Parnelli Jones co-owned the operation, and chief mechanic George Bignati designed the innovative Colt chassis.
What I did was I took the suspension parts off of this Lola, the uprights and everything of the four corners, and made a body out of it.
Under the cowling, Ford's turbocharged engine was bigger and better than the rival Offenhauser. All signs point to Al as the man to beat for the pole position.
The track is now open for qualification.
As qualifications neared completion, Johnny Rutherford's Offie sat atop the pylon. Al Unser was just waiting for his time to strike.
Listening to the drivers and taking in their information, I kept changing the car a little. I kept taking the push out of the car. And I told Al, I says, you're going to turn the first turn, the car could be just a teeny bit loose, but after that it'll keep coming in, and by the fourth lap, you'll be pushing a little bit. And he did, and he did a perfect job.
Al's Colt chassis ran like a thoroughbred and squeaked out a pole by 1/1000th of a second, the closest run for the pole in 500 history.
I was once told by one of the statisticians that had Al Unser and I started side by side together on our runs, that after the 4 laps, when we came across the line, Al Unser would have been 2.5 feet ahead of me.
Fans wondered if and when the 1970 race would get going. A short burst of rain delayed the start. Then, as the field rounded turn 4 to take the green, a broken rock sent Jim Malloy into the wall. The race is stopped before it can even begin.
The pace car is pulling into the pit area, moving as fast as it can down the main stretch for the world's fastest flying start. The greatest thrill in sport to us, the green flag is out, and the 1970 500-mile race is on. Come in, Mike.
Okay, said it's a real fight for first position, and it's Johnny Rutherford diving in along the yellow line, followed by Al Unser, A.J. Foyt, and Mark Donohue. Rutherford in the lead.
I took the lead into the first turn, and down the backstretch he drove by and left, and so that was That was it.
And in the backstretch, Al Unser pulling up alongside, taking the lead on the backstretch. Al Unser in number 1 position as they go into turn number 3.
When it's time to pit, that other Unser leads the first 48 laps. Fresh tires and fuel, and the Johnny Lightning Special is gone in a flash. Rutherford's hopes for a win at Indy are dashed when he stalls in the pits. Lloyd Ruby takes over the lead after making a Texas-sized leap from 25th to 1st.
Lloyd Ruby's car, the rear end of that car, burst into flames. He trailed about a 5-foot trail of flames through the short chute into turn 2.
A black flag followed by a broken drive gear ruins another May for Indy's hard luck hero. Meantime, Al Unser was running away with the race, nearly a minute ahead of the competition.
I don't know whether you ever think that you can win it until you win it. You know, that's always, you can always look back now and I can say, well, yeah, we knew, you know, but you never know. There's so many things that can happen at that place for some reason. You just never are really positive.
Al Unser, the checkered flag, the winner of the 1970 Indianapolis 500-mile race, and his crew goes wild.
Leading all but 10 laps, Unser's command performance was one of the Speedway's finest.
I really don't know if it's really true yet or not. I'm so excited right now that I think it'll probably take me 2 or 3 days to really get a hold of myself. And Barnelli and my wife keep telling me that I won it, so maybe I can get over it.
The victory made the Unsers the only brothers to win at Indy.
When I pulled in the victory lane, after you win that race, I'd drink anything somebody handed me. But it was really an honor to be able to drink the milk and to get all the excitement and all that.
Al sort of grew up, and in '70 he was fantastic.
1969's top rookie, Mark Donohue, earned runner-up honors for Penske Racing. And after back-to-back second-place finishes, Dan Gurney ends his dynamic racing career with a third-place finish. Gasoline Alley echoed the sign of the times: freedom, choice, and innovation. Team McLaren led an aerodynamic revolution with a design that would bend the rules and break barriers. In 1971, rules stated that all wings were to be an integral part of the body design of the car. Forward thinking found the loophole that allowed the wing to be independent of the chassis.
We went out and we worked with McLaren. We built a real wing car, and I'll never forget when Donohue went 180 miles an hour. It wasn't on the sheet. We used to have a stopwatch and a conversion chart, and they didn't have 180 on the sheet, so that was the days when things were starting to really move because of the downforce on the cars. And
I can remember Al Unser coming down to the garage one day in Gasoline Alley there and saying, you know, you guys are going to kill this race. The speeds are just awesome. There's no way we can compete.
In '71, Penske and McLaren came out with that new race car. And as soon as they run that thing, Donohue and Revson, we knew we were in trouble.
All the voodoo in Gasoline Alley couldn't stop Donohue from making a run at the record books on pole day.
Yes, you guessed it. 50 and 3900 seconds, and the speed 178.607 miles an hour. Mark Donohue.
Donohue's 177 average shattered the old mark. Now, Peter Revson, in a rival McLaren, stands between Team Penske and their first pole position.
You won't believe it. 50 and 1800 seconds, speed 179.354. He's gone for the pole.
Revson does it, eclipsing Donohue's record with a 4-lap average just over 178 miles an hour.
Gentlemen, start your engine!
The magic moment, the final few hundred yards. The pace car accelerates, cuts into the narrow pit entrance. Down the main stretch they come. The green flag is on, and the 1971 500-mile race is on.
We started that race, and Donahue came off the first corner, or the fourth corner so far ahead. I thought there had been a wreck.
Donahue was on a mission. The Navy Blue Sunoco Special starts to build an enormous lead.
We've had a spin back here, Sid, and about 3 cars spun around. 1 car is on the wall. It is car number 23. That's driven by Mel Kenyon, the Sprite car. I have my glasses on him, and I believe Mel is just about to get out of the car. We have had about 3 cars. Now we've got a 4th into the wall. Has crashed. 2 more have crashed.
Rookie Steve Kristeloff's Ford blows up on lap 12. Mel Kenyon's Sprite car spins in the oily mess.
I was partway out of the car, and I saw him coming, and and so I dropped back down into the cockpit in a crouched position. And he went up over my nose and left some tire tracks on top of my helmet and folded the dash around my shins. I'm real lucky to have 2 feet left.
After leading the first 50 laps, Donahue sets the fastest lap. And then on lap 66, car 66 slows down. A tremendous month results in a disappointing 25th for Team Penske.
We went out with a gearbox problem, and we knew we had these gears in the back of the transmission that had been showing, somewhere. In fact, we kept the gearbox open. We had special gears made, we thought, to fix the problem, but obviously it wasn't our day.
Quiet all month long, national driving champion Al Unser snaps up the lead.
In 71, I probably run it 3 times harder than I did in 70, to try to stay in the lead and try to stay up in the contending of winning that race.
For the next 30 miles, teammate Joe Leonard puts heavy pressure on Unser. An Indy repeat would not come easy.
They both are in the pit, almost one behind the other. We've got the glasses on Al. They're checking the car, not yet about to push him away. We've got them checking wheels on the car itself.
Al Unser was very good. He just come in, tell me what it's doing, that's all. He never ever said, change the spring or do this or do that. Al never mentioned once to do that, and that was something else.
Unser used a one-way radio to communicate with his team. The new technology kept him in contention.
I was able to tell them my temperature was going up in the engine from the radiator, and I had caught in a piece of paper in the radiator, say. And if they wouldn't have pulled that out, and then I caught another one later, but if I wouldn't have, we probably wouldn't have been able to finish the race.
And now we have an accident here on the main straightaway. Right in front of us is number 68 and 38, David Hobbs and Rick Uther. Right in front of the main stretch, the yellow is out, and both drivers are getting out of their cars. 68, David Hobbs running across the track and almost getting tapped by A.J. Foyt.
I'm looking in the mirror and I can't see anybody, let alone Rick. It turns out that Rick is down here, and Rick nailed me at about 7 o'clock and took us both into the wall.
Al maneuvers around the mess. Retakes the lead from Brother Bobby on lap 111.
The yellow is out, the yellow is out.
Tremendous crash into the outside retaining wall, and they went into Mark Donahue's car down there.
After colliding with Bobby Unser, Mike Mosley is injured as he makes contact with a parked race car inside turn 4.
Al Unser, winner of the 1971 Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Unser led 103 laps en route to the first back-to-back win at Indy in 2 decades.
I didn't get a self-satisfaction of saying, well, it was a harder race than last year, and that's why I've won it. I never did do that, because it was something that every race you ever run, regardless of Indianapolis, all of them, doesn't make any difference. You never really feel that you have an advantage until you get that checkered flag. And when you get the checkered flag, then, you can sit back and say, well, we did it again.
Unser was the first driver to visit a brand new victory lane located under the Master Control Tower. More winds of change rattled through the Brickyard in 1971. Race day was moved to Saturday instead of Memorial Day. Women were permitted in Gasoline Alley, and air guns replaced mallets in pit lane.
Coming to Indianapolis certainly was a great challenge for our team in 1969. We realized it was going to take a complete team effort, and the job probably wouldn't be done for at least 3 years. Of course, this takes patience with our sponsors. It certainly takes patience with our team members. And we knew that the fellows that had to work on the car in 69 better be around in 1970, 71, and 72 if we were ever going to be successful. And I think this is the reason that our team has had the success over the years, because we know we're only as strong as the weakest link. It's almost anticlimactic to come to the race and run the race after the tremendous preparation that's been done prior to going. This is a real team effort, and I just hope that this year at Indy we can win the big one.
All eyes were on Roger Penske's team in 1972. Mark Donohue came so close 1 year ago. And now, with teammate Gary Bettenhausen on board, Penske would settle for nothing less than the Borg Warner Trophy.
Roger Penske really was extraordinarily lucky to have teamed up with Mark. I mean, they made a fantastic pair. I mean, Roger had all the business acumen, he had all the foresight, he had some great plans, great ideas, and Mark was certainly the man to execute those ideas and plans.
The big question in Gasoline Alley was, can anyone beat Penske and McLaren? The answer would come on a wing and a prayer.
We had to come up with a counterattack on that. The old necessity is the mother of invention kind of thing.
An innovative rule change allowed designers to bolt on wings instead of building them into the chassis structure. And this sparked a new era in car design that would change the sport forever.
Dan Gurney comes with a wing that's sort of yay wide and a huge chord on it and a lot of upsweep. And with the Offenhauser that cranked out, 1,000 horsepower, I mean, the speed suddenly jumped into the high 190s. And that was what did it with his wings.
The 72 Eagle, it was almost a throwaway. It came so close to being thrown away you wouldn't believe it. It got down to one last meeting even. That car turned out to historically be one of the finest cars that ever went to Indianapolis or ever ran the IndyCar circuit. It was just extremely good. That car, we were on the verge of 200 miles an hour a year before it ever happened. We could have done it with that car.
Gurney's Eagle drastically altered the racing landscape, and not by a small margin. Driver Bobby Unser was running over 190 miles an hour all month long.
I was very proud of it, and we made a lot of power with it. It made essentially everything except possibly the McLaren obsolete.
Pole Day shaped up to be a historic showdown between the Eagles and the McLarens. Bobby Unser set the bar early on.
And it's still going up. A new track record for the Oldsonite Eagle, 194.932.
A four-lap average of 195.940 crushed Revson's 1971 mark by over 13 miles an hour. The Eagle lands the pole position.
It was because, they were running the engine so hard. At that time, we were running unlimited boost. In other words, we could run any amount of turbocharged pressure to the engine that we wanted. And it just seemed like Bobby had 150, 200 horsepower more than anybody else whenever he qualified.
All 33 qualifiers, including 8 rookies, shattered last year's pole speed.
Gentlemen, start your engine!
The Eagle soars early on. Revson and Donohue begin a healthy battle for second. After leading the first 30 laps, Bobby Unser suffers a broken ignition rotor. The Eagles' wings clipped. Unser finishes 30th.
I don't think anybody in history has ever had an advantage like I had that day. Some of the newspapers said I drove the car too hard and I broke it. Well, They just don't know how easy I drove it. I mean, I was treating it like a little baby. That car just wanted to go fast. And I didn't break the car. It would have happened no matter who would have been driving it. If I would have really pushed it, God only knows what it would have made the rest of the guys look like.
And there's a driver on the track. We'll see. Cars are slowing down, coming out of the number 4 turn. There's a machine on fire.
While leading, Mike Mosley slams into the turn 4 wall. He suffers burns. Team Penske now runs 1-2 with Bettenhausen at the point.
There were some people just off the second turn. They had a barbecue going. They were grilling some steaks or some chicken or something. And the smoke was going across the racetrack, and I could actually smell it. And I'd go by and I'd wave at them, and this while I'm leading the race. So it was that easy.
Debris on lap 172 slows the field. A small pinhole in the car's cooling system has Bettenhausen worried.
When the yellow flag came out, I knew I was through. I had trouble getting it cooled back down. Now, as long as I could run fast at race speeds, I could keep the water temperature around 200 degrees. So I was actually running the race by the water temperature gauge.
You wouldn't believe it, but hard luck has apparently hit number 7 there. He went by here very slowly.
For the second straight year, a Penske car dominates the race and fails to finish. After leading 138 laps, Bettenhausen gives the lead to Jerry Grant in the other Gurney Eagle.
On the last 2 laps, Len and I have both been clocking the gap between Grant and Donahue. I'm going down to see if they're on the same lap for certain, but Donahue's catching up with Jerry Grant very quickly.
There's still hope for Team Penske. Donahue is gaining on Grant, who is struggling to stay up front with a bad tire.
Jerry Grant has just come into the pit area for an unscheduled, unexpected pit stop. So we're watching from here. He's back, being pushed back out again, and there he goes as Mark Donahue goes by.
We had a tire that was out of balance, but we couldn't even communicate with him by radio. Is it possible that we didn't get enough fuel in the car, or just what is it?
The team tops off Grant's tank with fuel from Bobby Unser's pit.
Before I could get him to stop, but he went back out, unlapped himself, and that was the end of it.
Mark was, in the shadows there, but that's how the race goes. As I said, it's the end looks a lot different than the beginning.
And there's the checkered flag for Mark Donahue, winner of the 1972 Indianapolis 500-mile race.
Donahue reaches the checkered flag 3 minutes ahead of second place. The victory is the first for team owner Roger Penske.
It was a big day for us. I think it established that, maybe the guys with the polished wheels and the butch haircuts were okay, because, we were looked at kind of as, who are these guys that showed up here with the clean garages? So I was a pretty proud guy.
Mark Donahue was a very talented race car driver, from being an engineer, which whether it made a difference or not, you never know. But he had the way of thinking. He thought things out, and he was very precise in everything that he did. So when he had things right, you couldn't touch him.
Jerry Grant crossed the finish line second, but officials later penalized him to 12th for his illegal pit stop late in the race. Al Unser inherited runner-up honors despite efforts to become Indy's first three-peat winner. A new dihedral wing car made his month quite a challenge.
That was a double dihedral nightmare. I mean, that thing wouldn't go straight, do anything. With the technology we had at our disposal, and the 3 drivers that we had, what they called the super team, Joe Leonard, Mario Andretti, and myself. And it turned out to be a flop.
In 1973, car owners Pat Patrick and Andy Granatelli joined forces with master mechanic George Bignotti to make a run at racing's biggest prize. Indy's next dynasty featured a trio of talented drivers: Gordon Johncock, Swede Savage, and rookie Graham McRae. For the STP team, this May would be unlike any other. Veteran driver Art Pollard loses his life in a crash during practice. He was attempting to qualify for his 6th Indy 500. Mother Nature plagued the speedway for most of the month. Wind, rain, and cold temperatures limited track time, but not the speeds. This was the year to challenge the 200-mile-an-hour barrier.
In '73, we had a really strong engine, and I think 3 or 4 times during practice, we put together 200-mile-an-hour laps. We had, in fact, we practiced one day and ran 200. And came back and put the car in qualifying trim and went out to see what we could do. You know, put 4 laps together, you know, see if we could do 200. And we did. We ran a 200.1 or something average for the 4 laps and thought we could do the 200 miles an hour.
Pole day, and a handful of drivers prepare to make that quantum leap into the racing record books.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a new track record. Swede Savage.
The pride of San Bernardino, California, is STP Eagle flying high. Savage is on the pole at 196.5.
In '73, we ordered 3 new Eagles from Dan Gurney. And looking at the car, I noticed that the radius rods were going uphill, which was, when you put the brake on, it lifts the car. So I dropped them down to get a better suspension. And that's the only change I made. Dan never ever figured it out. We beat his car all the time.
Now, Johnny Rutherford sets his sights on Indy glory with his Golf McLaren.
It's a new track record. Speed 199.071 miles an hour. And here he is, Johnny Rutherford.
Just a few tenths of a second shy of the magic mark, Lone Star JR grabs his first Indy pole. He breaks the 1 and 4-lap marks in the process.
It was new territory. I had not been in that position before, but to be with Team McLaren as thorough as they were and as methodical and the way they put it together, it was a great thrill for this young driver to have an opportunity to experience that.
The forecast for race day does not give fans much hope. Rain plagues the world's largest single-day sporting event. The green flag is delayed until mid-afternoon.
We have a tremendous crash here going into the number 1 turn in the back of the pack, Mike. We'll take it back here once again. The red flag is out. The red flag is out. We'll not try to guess how many cars. Near the very back of the pack, something happened. We see tire tracks going over toward the wall, pieces of race cars. A big flame came out on one car, was extinguished right away, and the race has been stopped.
Saul Walther's horrific crash sprays debris and fuel across the main straightaway.
Got the green flag and going across the short chute as we came around 2, yellow came on. And you know, you wonder, well, somebody back there made a faux pas and made, something happen. It came around and it was mayhem. You know, the front straightaway was totally blocked and red was out and we had to go into the pits.
The catastrophe collects 11 cars. The front stretch resembles a war zone. Walther is rushed to the hospital, his hand severely burned.
I mean, naturally you think about it and you feel bad about it, but once you get back out there in that race car and get it going again, that's gone. You got to concentrate on your driving, and if you don't, you're going to end up in serious trouble or cause somebody else to have trouble.
As the cleanup continues, teams hustle to repair the damaged cars. Again, the Hoosier skies open up. The rain persists throughout the day. and the race is postponed.
I can remember sitting under the wing of the car and people taking pictures of me asleep out there. But we spent a lot of time there, and the rain was funny. You had to go away and come back and go away and come back, and it was tough. You just had to get motivated. When the time came to go again, you had to get going again.
Anticipation mounted for the green flag to fall on day 2, but it never came. During the second parade lap, another burst of rain fell on the track and shattered any hopes of racing that day.
You're all pumped up, ready to go, and it's like the old joke about the high school coach getting the team all revved up. We're gonna go beat them. Yeah, come on, give me a cheer. Yeah, we're ready to go, and they get ready to go out in the field to play, and the gym door's locked.
Day 3 featured more rain and fewer fans. It was Wednesday, and both spectators and drivers were growing tired of waiting.
We went to the drivers' meeting, and most of us, it was such a lackadaisical atmosphere in the drivers' meeting. If they had said, let's move on and go to Milwaukee, we'd have probably voted yes, because we had lost all of our edge for the month of May and everything else.
Meanwhile, down at turn 1, it turned into a complete bog, and everybody down there standing up to their knees in mud and garbage, and the whole thing was just grisly.
At 2 p.m., the sun finally makes its first appearance in days. A break in the dreadful weather puts everyone on notice. This could be the only chance to complete the race. After days of waiting and wondering, it's finally time for the greatest spectacle in racing.
Here they come down the main stretch, the world's fastest flying start. The green flag is waved, and the 1973 Indianapolis 500-mile race is on. Mike Gahern.
Yes, Sid, and it's a replay of Monday up front. Bobby Unser pitches him off at the head. Then it's Mark Donohue, and then it's Mario Andretti. Johnny Rutherford has dropped to 4th.
As pit stops begin, the STP team moves to the front. John Cock and Savage take turns at the point. After leading 12 laps, Savage makes his first stop of the day. He returns to action in 4th place.
We have a crash on the 4th turn. Jim, can you see it? The yellow is out. Jim Shelton.
It was a violent crash with much flame, but it's way down the track from me, Sid. I cannot see really who it is.
The red flag is out and the race is being stopped.
Savage loses control of his Eagle coming out of turn 4 and hits the inside wall. 75 gallons of fuel explode as the car is tossed across the main stretch. Savage is trapped inside the burning cockpit.
The track was blocked, and we all stopped in turn 4, I believe it was, and got out of our cars and everything because they'd stopped it, and we knew there was a bad wreck up there. I was walking up that way, and if I remember right, I think Foyt stopped me and said, "You don't want to go up there."
And of course, as it was such a grey day, you could see this fuel jet up probably 40 feet into the air and ablaze, and we all stopped there and got out of our cars up there at turn 4, and Denny Hulme and I are just standing there shaking our heads, and it was just, I can remember that scene so well, standing up there at the corner while the wreckage is being cleared off.
I actually stepped out of the car and let AJ in, and I'd seen that deal, and I just didn't run no more that day.
The car caught on fire, burnt him, and he really didn't get hurt that bad. It was the fire that got him.
He hadn't burned much of that off. The race is somebody's been hit in the pit.
Savage's sign man, Armando Tehran, is hit by a safety vehicle as he rushes to the crash scene.
That was bad enough. We had one bad accident there, and we have another one in the pit.
Duran was killed instantly. Savage was rushed to the hospital with severe burns, internal injuries, and broken legs. The race was stopped once again, and no one really cared if it ever continued.
I guess at the time we just had to stay cool. I mean, racers, you know, are very versatile. They handle adversity, and certainly we were there to run that race, and we'd spent a lot of time, and we were going to be there and finish our business. But I think it's just something that you have to deal with.
The 1973 race had turned into a race to forget, but the show goes on. Over an hour later, the race resumes. Al Unser leads. As the event grows longer, attrition shrinks the field. 19 cars fall out with mechanical failures, including Unser, who drops out with a bad piston. Johncock momentarily lifts the spirits of the STP team. Gordy sets fastest lap and begins to pull away.
Gordy was the most tenacious racer that you could ever hope to race against. He was like a bulldog. You know, he just didn't give up. If his car was right, he was extremely tough. If it wasn't right, he could still be tough. He was that kind of a guy. You know, he just raced hard.
A miserable month finally comes to an end when the race is red flagged for rain on lap 133. Johncock is declared the winner.
There wasn't no celebration, you know, it was it just all, you know, we were all stopped there because of the rain, you know, under the red flag, and then all of a sudden they announced that they were calling the race, so, you know, then we knew it, but there was no cheering and jumping up and down. And
it was great to win, but that was a sad year.
Although Bignotti claimed his 6th Indy win and Johncock his first, the victory was bittersweet. Their teammate was clinging to life.
That night after the race, we went down to the hospital to see him, and then I remember I went down there with Patrick, and I think it was on the way back we stopped there on Meridian Street or 16th Street or there in front of Speedway and ate at a Burger King, I think, you know, and went on home because it was really something that it hit everybody hard, you know. It was just the way it happened.
There wasn't much that went right the whole month.
The 1973 Indy 500 really is something that I really want to forget.
33 days after his crash, Swede Savage succumbed to his injuries in an Indianapolis hospital. He was 26 years old.
He was the All-American boy. He was a great driver. Wherever I took him to test, he broke the record. I mean, we were really gone. That would have been a fantastic year.
It was a race that just everybody wanted to forget. There was so many accidents, and it was just, I don't know of a worse year at the Speedway than 1973.
In 1974, sweeping changes across the Speedway affected the cars, the track, and the schedule. A new era had dawned at the Brickyard, and safety was paramount. Anxious to put the 1973 race on the rearview mirror, new Chief Steward Tom Benford had forced a series of rule revisions. The wings were the first to go.
USAC had got together and said, you know, we can't have these wings that are 10 feet long, you know. And so the wing also was a fire size. It was very deep. In fact, it was almost square. It was very deep, but it wasn't very wide.
We thought at one point maybe the tracks were obsolete because of the higher speeds with the wings. We took the wings and, you know, made them narrower and took the cord down in order to reduce some of the downforce, because in those days, you know, we had such cornering speeds that really people had not even believed.
The biggest changes were to the fuel cell. The tank was moved to the left side of the car, and the fuel load reduced from 75 to 40 gallons. The smaller tanks meant twice as many pit stops on race day.
Having the fuel restriction kind of evened everything up to where it closed the competition level. You weren't able to just run away with horsepower.
Speeds would shrink as a new pop-off valve limited the amount of boost for turbocharged engines.
And it kind of equalized the playing field as far as being able to, if one team could really afford to spend a lot of money and run a lot of boost during the race, they could get ahead.
Improvements to the Speedway facility were made in the name of safety. The flag stand was relocated to a spot above the yard of bricks. The retaining walls were raised. Turn 4 was widened, and the pit entrance was rebuilt.
Two benefits that I can think of offhand. One of them is that we can bring the pace car off sooner than we've been able to do in the past and get it out and away from the field in the fourth turn. But it also makes the entrance to the pit a straight line instead of having to dash in there or kind of turn into it as they have in the past.
Even qualifications were modified. In response to the national energy crisis, officials condensed qualifications from 4 days to 2.
Start in the morning till noon was one day, and then noon till 6 o'clock was the next day, and that way all the way through. Well, when we got shuffled, we wound up in the third day.
Rutherford would start 25th on pole day.
410682 for a 46.74. Speed
192.555. A.J. Foyt on the court. A.J. Foyt rebounded from a 2-year slump to put his Coyote Ford on the pole.
Down the main straightaway they come for the world's fastest flying start. The green flag is waved, and the 1974 Indianapolis 500-mile race is on.
Right off the start, Wally Dallenbach really puts his foot in it. Wally's Wildcat Offie pounces to a huge lead over Foyt. But the leader's in trouble. Dallenbach's car begins to smoke. A burnt piston ends his day on lap 3. A.J. Foyt gladly inherits the lead. Super Tex begins his march to an unprecedented 4th Indy win.
Johnny Rutherford ran the 7th lap at 188 miles an hour. He is in 6th place at the end of the 7th lap.
After starting a distant 25th, Johnny Rutherford's McLaren is on a mission to catch Foyt.
That's a long way back. And the car was so good, and our combination and setup was so good that when they dropped the green flag, within 12 laps I was running 3rd. It was amazing. I could just pass them wherever I came to them.
Johnny Rutherford just now took Bobby Unser, so Joey Rutherford is really moving out.
Just passed halfway in the race, got into a real hammer and tong duel with A.J.
The Texas tussle moves to the pits. Foyt's crew makes a costly mistake. A.J.'s loss is Rutherford's gain. Lone Star Jr. leads the Indy 500 for the first time in his career.
We raced hard. He was a little quicker down the straightaway than I was, but I was much faster than he was in the turns, but I couldn't make that work. I couldn't get by him to be able to make that work in my favor. And so we raced very hard, and I knew that if I kept the pressure on him, I might run him out of right rear tire or engine. And I didn't, just keep doing that. So I stayed glued right to him. Well, his car started blowing oil.
It looks like there is a little bit of smoke coming out of the back end of A.J. Foyt's car.
With oil spitting from his exhaust, Foyt is black flagged and forced to pit. An oil fitting finally knocks him out on lap 142. Rutherford is back in front.
And here's the checkered flag for Johnny Rutherford, winner of the 1974 Indianapolis 500-mile race.
After a decade of futility at the Brickyard, Rutherford wins racing's greatest prize.
Coming down with your number being held out, number one, and getting that checkered flag, and you think, wow, is this really happening? You worked very hard, and it's the greatest sense of accomplishment in the world.
Indy also marked the first win for Team McLaren, who capped off 74 with the Formula One World Championship.
It changed my career, gave me the depth and what I needed in a car that I could get the job done with. I had always told my wife Betty if I could ever find a team that wanted to go racing as badly as I did, that we'd be winners, and Team McLaren fit that bill.
Despite a late spin, second-generation driver Dwayne Pancho Tyler earns top rookie honors for his 7th place finish. Firestone Tire, the winner of 48 Indianapolis 500s, dropped their Indy program at the end of the season. And that opened the door for Goodyear Tire to run uncontested for the next 2 decades. Excellence and experience were in style at Indy in 1975. 6 former champions arrived at the Brickyard hungry for another drink of milk. The Eagle chassis and Offenhauser engine were still the package to have in Gasoline Alley. But on pole day, a lone Coyote fought off the majority.
I don't have to tell you, it's a time of 46 and 800 seconds at the speed 135. A.J. Foyt is on the pole at the moment.
Foyt wins his 4th Indy pole. Could a record 4th Indy victory be far behind?
You know, I've always felt that records are made to be broken, and as long as I continue to race, I want to win and set all the records I possibly can. And I've always felt the day that I lose that drive, then I will hang it up and quit racing. But it's a very important race in my life. I've got the first time an opportunity to become the only man to ever win Indianapolis at the present time 4 times, and that's a goal that I'd like to achieve if I possibly could.
33 powerful racing machines are straining to be let loose as they leave turn 4 and head down the main straightaway. Now here they come for the world's fastest flying start. We're watching Pat Vidan. The green flag is out, and the 1975 Indianapolis 500-mile race is on!
At the start, Gordon Johncock takes the lead. The 73 champ is quick. He sets the fastest lap early on. But for the second straight year, bad luck bites the STP team. Gordy suffers a faulty ignition and must call it a day. Foyt is waiting in the wings. On lap 11, the Coyote Orange number 14 inherits the lead.
Into turn number 3, A.J. Foyt takes the lead. Johnny Rutherford drops back 1 position.
In what seems like a carbon copy of 1974, Foyt and Rutherford battle for first.
Yellow's out. Here's Doug Zink, turn 3.
Thank you, Sid. And it was more over on the backstretch. Before he got to turn number 3, we saw something happen. It's Mario Andretti in car number 21.
Mario's Indy jinx continues on lap 50.
A.J. Foyt just came by me, riding the white line. He may be in a little bit of trouble.
Despite leading 53 laps, Foyt's chances of a 4th Indy win were foiled when he ran out of fuel on lap 124.
We didn't win because we ran out of fuel and coasted in. And we already said we had to make 8 stops. Every 25 laps, stop, stop, stop. Well, my crew there said, we can do it on 7. Well, it cost us a race.
Coming off the second turn, Tom Sneva got into the outside wall. The car has come to stop just in front of us. There was some flame. The engine's torn completely off of the car. He was stunned, flipping around in the car. It got airborne, hit the wall, came to light right side up, right here in front of us.
Sophomore Tom Sneva is working on a top 5 finish when he tries to maneuver around traffic.
We had a sweep over in the second turn, and all the material off the cars almost got up into the sweeps. The engine unhooked from the chassis, but I think that was a real test, you know, of what the tubs were all about in those days.
Sneva survives a spectacular crash with just a few minor burns.
The last thought I had was that I was dreaming. I was upside down in a race car, and you know how dreams are, they just sort of fade off, and that was my last thought until, you know, a half hour later when I, you know, started remembering things back in the field hospital. So I just took it for granted that he'd probably give me a little more room and knew I was there, and you know, and he really didn't. I just assumed wrong, and you know, before we got all the way by, our 2 cars came together, and you know, obviously mine got upside down and into the wall at about 180 miles an hour, and you know, the rest of that is history.
After a lengthy yellow, Wally Dallenbach's modified Offie engine flashes to the front.
Wally Dallenbach just went by us very, very slowly, and those telltale puffs of gray smoke coming up from the rear of that car.
But on lap 161, a blown piston knocks Dallenbach out of the lead for the second straight year.
Well, everything was just beautiful. We just knew we were going to win it. And I thought really and truly all month long I had this one in the bag.
The race reaches its final stages. Now it's Rutherford versus Bobby Unser, McLaren versus Eagle.
There comes the rain pretty heavily. We're watching Pat Vidan. The yellow is out. And we're going to wait to make it official if he's going to pull out the red or not, which has to happen now. It's pouring down rain.
Without any warning, a torrential downpour soaks the speedway. Inches of water flood the famed oval in a matter of seconds.
We have an accident on the main straightaway that is at the entrance to the pits. They are trying to stop the race cars that are approaching this accident.
The monsoon turns the track into a lake, putting the cars and drivers in a slippery situation.
The problem is that the tires being bald, not from lack of rubber, but just bald by design, they just get up on top of the water and they never touch the ground, they just aquaplane.
That's going to be it, and Bobby Unser from Albuquerque, New Mexico may have weathered the storm, so to speak, and pushed himself into victory lane here by virtue of water.
Bobby Unser swims down the waterlogged front stretch to take the checkered flag. It's the second win for Unser and car owner Dan Gertie.
Rutherford, Foyt, it made no difference after that. They were going to be history. Made no difference. We had a ton on them by that time.
It was amazing. It wasn't quite as fabulous as I expected it to be. I was still very proud of it, but it cost an enormous amount.
Rutherford's hopes of back-to-back Indy wins were drowned out. Lone Star JR settles for second.
If it had not rained, Bobby would have had to make his pit stop to have enough fuel to finish, and I would have passed him and gone on to win the race.
And we weren't slow. And we were going to win the thing with or without rain. As far as our team was concerned, we had beaten them. We'd outrun them. It was okay. It's no problem. If I had a choice, I'd say, hey, I'll take the rain because it's over with.
For the first time in Speedway history, a woman would attempt to qualify for the 500.
I had no idea that kind of fracas was going to ensue. I mean, yes, I did know that women had always been forbidden from the pits, the garage area, and the press box at Indianapolis. I was aware of that history, that a woman's footsteps might profane the sacred turf, but I didn't really feel the force of it until I got there. It was quite amazing to me.
"38-year-old Janet Guthrie garnered a lot of attention in May of 1976. An aerospace engineer, pilot, and sports car driver, Guthrie was embarking on uncharted territory, and the pressure was enormous.
I think the stress of being the first woman to participate in a risk sport of that magnitude did have its effects. Fortunately, I had a very strong desire and could, in general, deal with that. But so many drivers were saying I was going to be a threat to their lives, and so on and so forth.
Gasoline Alley was buzzing about the first woman racer. And while Guthrie's credentials were good enough for most, some were quite critical.
It isn't anything against the women. We got in a big argument in those days about being a woman or a man running, and I don't think that has a factor in it. I don't think that Janet Guthrie was a good race car driver. So that's where my conflict came in with her.
She wasn't going to get any special favors. She got a lot of publicity, but I mean, and she didn't ask for special favors. I think she probably was surprised at how intense the pressure was, and I felt sorry for her for that standpoint.
I'd always been of the philosophy that if they had the credentials and could do the job and could pass the tests and to do everything that everybody else had to do, fair enough. Shouldn't be any problem.
On pole day, A.J. Foyt was in pursuit of an unprecedented third straight pole. Foyt is fast, but his Coyote can't keep up to the horsepower of Rutherford's McLaren. JR wins his second 500 pole. On the final day of qualifying, Guthrie had yet to make the race. That morning, she took some fast laps in Foyt's backup car.
In 9 laps, I was fast enough to make the field with that car, and then for some reason he decided not to let me do it. But it was quite an experience, and I think it opened some people's eyes to the fact that in good equipment I could get the job done.
But when the final gun sounded at 6 p.m., Guthrie found herself on the outside looking in.
I think the sound of that gun went straight through my heart. It was a moment I'll never forget.
And here they come down the main stretch for the world's fastest flying start. The green flag is waved, and the 1976 Indianapolis 500-mile race is on.
Off the start, Rutherford flies to the front with Foyt in hot pursuit.
A.J. Foyt is gaining some speed and almost passing. As he goes low, he does pass Johnny Rutherford.
A.J. takes the point on lap 4. This one is shaping up to be another Texas shootout between Rutherford and Foyt.
I could see that he was backing up to me. And I'm running second, and he's leading it. And he's backing up, and finally I catch him and I set him up and go by him, and I start just driving away. And I wonder, what in the world?
JR begins to settle in for a long day up front. His McLaren is flawless after 250 miles. Foyt and Gordon Johncock struggle to keep pace with Rutherford. Then Mother Nature steps in.
There's rain on the backstretch. Pat Vadan now has the red flag and he's waving it. The race is being stopped.
The break in the action lets Foyt and Johncock mend their cars.
So we're in the pits under, and AJ is really giving the officials what for. And he had a bad shock absorber. Well, I knew that if he fixed his shock absorber and we went out to get the green flag, he would be really tough.
After 2.5 hours of waiting, the track is dry.
They order us back to our cars, and we're in the cars getting ready, and they're just getting ready to announce restart your engines, and it bottom fell out again. And it rained really hard, covered the cars up, waited for it to subside, and it rained for maybe 30 minutes, and it was enough and late enough in the day that they couldn't get the track dry. And so they opted to call the race.
The Pat Vadan is waving the checkered flag for Johnny Rutherford, winner of the 1976 Indianapolis 500-mile race.
The shortest 500 in history ends on lap 102. Lone Star JR becomes the first driver in Indy history to walk into victory lane.
Eddie and I up the ramps and into the victory lane, and you know, it was it might not have been quite the same excitement as it was if it had finished under the green flag, but nevertheless we'll take it any way we can get it, and we won our second Indianapolis 500, and it was equally exciting.
Inside the Speedway, a brand new museum opened to the public. The Hall of Fame Museum featured classic cars, trophies, and a theater. Since 1974, the assault on the 200-mile-an-hour barrier had been put on hold. When officials repaved the track in the summer of '76, it was time to dust off the record books. During practice in 1977, several drivers clocked laps over 200. Whether that number would make it to pole day was anyone's guess.
200 is still the magic number, I think. No matter what you do, 200 mile an hour, it just sounds fast. It is fast. But to be able to run 200 miles an hour back in the 70s, you know, was a pretty good challenge.
Pole day is barely an hour old when Tom Sneva takes aim at 200.
It's a new track record.
Sneva wastes no time. He eclipses the magic mark on his first lap. He then shatters the one-lap record with a speed of 200.535 miles an hour. Sneva is on the pole and in the history books.
It was a very proud feeling, more than anything. You know, we were proud of that accomplishment. You know that there's always going to be new track records and people are going to go faster and faster, but to be the first person to run the 200 mile, that magic mark, you know, that's something they can't take away from you.
Believe me, people couldn't believe we could get around this racetrack with 200 miles an hour. So, you know, he really deserved, you know, all the credit, and there was no question. When he came off of turn 4, I never knew whether he was going to get it turned to come down the straightaway because he drove, you know, such a different pattern around this racetrack.
Janet Guthrie returned to Indy with hopes of making some history of her own.
I didn't go into IndyCar racing feeling as if I had to prove something because I was a woman. That perspective was forced upon me to my considerable surprise. As a driver, every driver has something to prove to themselves.
When it's time to qualify, a sick engine threatens Guthrie's run at the record books. She's got the speed, but will her motor make it?
When I last looked at the oil pressure gauge coming out of turn 4 approaching the checker, it was nailed to 0. And if the engine blew up between there and the starting line, that was it. There would be no more chances. So what I mostly felt when I saw the checker, yes, I knew I had made it. I knew I had the speed from the tachometer, but there was also that great relief that the engine had lasted.
History made. Another barrier broken. Guthrie becomes the first woman to qualify for the Indianapolis 500. She'll start 26th.
They came to realize that I was just what I said I was, a racing driver who happened to be a woman. The woman part didn't make a darn bit of difference.
I think that, you know, a female coming to the 500, you know, was of great interest, not only to us as competitors, to see exactly, you know, how competitive she could be, but also to the outside world. And, you know, I thought it was terrific.
Although a woman had made the field of 33, Speedway President Tony Hulman decided he would not change those famous words spoken before each race.
Tony Hulman stated that he was going to go ahead and say, "Gentlemen, start your engines," because he said, after all, the mechanics start the engines. And Kay Bignati came to me and said, "We can't let Tony get away with this." Kay was out there on the starting line. She started my engine. And so she had a really great effect on what happened that year. So Tony was obliged to change his tune.
In company with the first lady ever to qualify at Indianapolis, gentlemen, start your engine.
Al Unser rushes to the front. A cluster of contenders battle to challenge the leader.
That is car 27, Janet Guthrie's car, now slowing on the race course.
Guthrie pits on lap 26. Her historic day done in by a bad timing gear.
I brought it in, they changed something, I took it out, it was still wrong. We did that a number of times, and it took quite a while into the race before we finally decided to throw in the sponge.
As the field sorts itself out, Gordon Johncock leads. A.J. Foyt positions himself into second.
A.J. Foyt coming in. I've got a stopwatch on him. How close are they? And Foyt is about 9 seconds behind Gordon Johncock.
And Gordon Johncock moving by us. Now here's A.J. Foyt. They're into turn number 4.
Johncock begins to pull away. Gordy is poised to erase a series of bad breaks for the STP team and win another May Classic.
A.J. Foyt, an interval of 6.82 seconds between the leader Johncock, the second place car Foyt. Foyt is closing the gap. Johncock might be running out of fuel.
You're running out there and you never gave a thought about the crankshaft breaking. the carburation was right, the fuel mileage was good, the car was running good, and he was just running, and he wasn't overdriving or anything. He was just going well, and it was just amazed that the damn thing stopped.
So the chase is on, but Gordon Johncock has pulled over to the left side of the straightaway. He appears to be slowing. He has cut his car in off of the apron at the south end of the main straightaway.
Really even happened to run that hard because we were so far ahead of him, and then all of a sudden the engine just let go and pulled down in the guardrail, and turn one went down, laid in the creek, and pulled off.
You know, Foyt and I were kind of feuding because we split up, and I wanted to beat him, and he wanted to beat me, and it was kind of a hard race to lose when you're going that far. You know, you got about 15 laps to go.
77, I'll have to say, was the biggest disappointment in my racing career.
After leading 129 laps, a blown engine crushes Johncock's chances of a second Indy win. Once again, Foyt is the beneficiary of bad luck.
From the dusty tracks of Texas, the Racing Hall of Fame, and there goes Foyt toward turn 3.
And the crowd on its feet is A.J. Foyt. They're waving at him, waving him on through turn number 3, off of 3 into the short chute.
I had tears in my eyes the last 4 or 5 laps because I guess the good Lord wanted me to run 500 miles and be a true 500-mile winner 4 times, because I felt last year and year before last that we had a good shot at winning the race, and the rain come along and we lost the race, but I'm glad it worked out like it did.
A.J. Foyt down the main straightaway. The checkered flag is out. A.J.'s hand in the air. He is the winner. A.J. Foyt at Indianapolis has won his 4th 500-mile race.
A momentous month in 500 history ends with a living legend pulling into victory lane.
To be the first man to ever do something like that after so many years that people have been there trying to, I was very happy. And finally I asked my dad, I says, well, you're patting everybody on the back. What a great job they did today. I said, what did I do? He said, you had a little part in it. And that's all he ever said. So, I mean, I guess that was about the nicest words he ever spoke to me after a race.
I don't think there was anybody more deserving. You know, he didn't, it wasn't handed to him. He earned it. And he did it, you know, from a period, like I say, where we all ran the same kind of cars. I still consider him the greatest driver to ever bolt on a helmet and strap himself into a race car.
During post-race ceremonies, Speedway President Tony Hulman joined Foyt in the pace car for a special victory lap.
In regards to how many more men win it 4 times, being the first to do it after 50-something years really meant a lot to me, and especially with Mr. Hulman, because we got to be very close and very good friends, and I think he was awful thrilled to see me be the first man to win it 4 times.
In October, Speedway owner Tony Hulman passed away at the age of 76. Hulman transformed the dilapidated brickyard into an auto racing shrine and made the Indy 500 an American tradition. In 1978, Roger Penske arrived at the Speedway with racing's top qualifier, a Formula One contender and an off-road racer named Rick Mears.
And we sat down and he said, this is what I have to offer. He said, Mario's going to be chasing a world championship next year, and I need somebody to fill in part-time. I'll guarantee you the 3 500-mile races and at least 3 others. And well, needless to say, a part-time ride with that team I felt would be more beneficial than a full-time ride with most.
All the rookie would need was one race to prove he was the sport's next superstar. Rain washed out the opening weekend of qualifications. When a truncated pole day began, only a few drivers could hit 200. Second-year standout Danny Ungaius and 4-time winner A.J. Foyt qualified over 200 miles an hour. Then Mears turned heads by landing his Gould charge on the front row.
There were no expectations. And Roger was very good at taking the pressure off. I mean, I put more pressure on myself than he would. And he was he said, hey, we've got Sneva, we've got Mario, we've got them to stand on the gas to qualify quick. You just go out and get the experience, get the laps. And he really allowed me to learn at my pace.
Sneva put the pedal to the metal, and 4 laps later, the Norton Spirit was back on the pole. His record-breaking run clocked in just over 202 miles an hour. Team Penske plants 2 cars in the front row.
The only way you know is by how much throttle you're using in the corners, because, you know, at that time we were real close to flat out, and you could tell, the driver could tell if he used a little more of the throttle in that corner. And you know, I knew that I'd used more throttle than I had been using. Like, you know, it was very close to flat out all the way around the racetrack, which is the first time I'd been able to do that. And you know, a lot of that's adrenaline flow and the time of the day and just getting up for the activity. And you know, we did that, and you know, we had the car pretty close and ran it real close to its limits.
Mike Hiss qualified the 3rd Penske car for Andretti. When Mario returned from Europe, he had the Formula One points lead, but had to start the 500 in last place. 1978 was the first 500 without owner Tony Hulman. His wife Mary would now bring the world's greatest race to life.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engine.
Rick Mears found himself surrounded by experience on race day. The rookie could not afford to make a mistake.
Now there was the pressure of, well, now there's no excuses. You know, I'm with the best team in business. They've got the best equipment out there. There are no excuses, so you did have to get the job done.
Pat Vadan watches the field. The green flag is out. The 1978 500-mile race is on.
And we take off, come around, and we get the green, and like I said, I'm not going to make a mistake. Take off, and I go up, you know, first, second, and I go to third, and we'd had trouble with the gearbox, and we had 2 top gears in the box, and the car just fell on its face. And I thought, oh no, you know, I just kind of shrunk down on the car because I knew somebody was going to collect me. And fortunately, everybody missed.
Mears avoids disaster, but another problem pops up. The rookie fails to fasten his helmet.
So now I'm driving around holding the helmet on with one hand, you know, and driving with the other. And I'm, you know, how embarrassing to call in to the guys and say, you know, my first race at Indy, I forgot to buckle my helmet, guys. So I drove for, I don't know how many laps with one hand holding that thing down. And finally, I got up the courage to call in and tell them I'd messed up.
He said the helmet was going up over his eyes, so we had to come in and take a couple laps to fix his helmet, because he had a car that day, and the way he was running, he might have been the winner that very first time he ran with us.
And the first thought through my mind was, well, now here's the rookie, you know, making a mistake. But you know, we were able to get going, and the car was very competitive that day.
Al Unser and Danny Ungayas are now fighting for the lead at the 136th lap.
While Mears fell back, Ungayas surged forward. The Flying Hawaiian was making his mark on the famed oval. Then Ungayas' machine blows an engine on lap 145. Once again, Lady Luck frowns on a dominant driver. With a new car and a new team, Al Unser slips into the lead. The quiet contender surprises even himself. A third 500 win is within reach.
When the race started, about 4th of the way through, they just came back to me. I says, my gosh, I like this. Pretty soon we were leading, and that's one of those days that, you know, prior, you can say that morning that I thought I could maybe run with them. To outrun them, I didn't think so. And then all of a sudden, there we were, you know. We were outrunning them.
With 20 laps to go, Unser makes his last pit stop, but flirts with disaster.
In those days, we didn't have a speed limit. You came in 150, 200 mile an hour through that pit gate down there. And when I came in, I didn't even know I hit it, but it damaged my wing. And it did slow me down a little bit, but we had enough of a cushion that I was able to win.
Al Unser is the winner of the 1978 500-mile race, and he joins that elite group of three-time winners at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Unser had pegged 1978 as a learning year with Jim Hall Racing. Always a quick study, Albuquerque Al led 121 laps and found victory lane for the third time in 9 years.
When I won in 70, people said, well, now you ought to retire. Retire, I just got started. You know, and then every year thereafter they kept saying, well, you don't need to come back. But, you know, it isn't a fact of needing to come back, it's wanting to come back to the greatest sporting event in the world, and that's the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So to be able to win there and walk away with that honor, it's just terrific.
If I were a car owner, was not a driver, Al Unser's who I'd want to drive my race car. Al was a very smart driver. He wasn't flash, but he was always there, steady, and he won a lot of races and did good.
Tom Sneva became an Indy bridesmaid for the second straight year. His Penske teammate Rick Mears lost an engine on lap 103, but shared top rookie honors with Larry Rice. Nursing a broken wrist, Janet Guthrie completed her first Indy 500 with a 9th place finish.
It's hard to express the meaning of a top 10 finish at Indianapolis. It's something that any driver can be proud of. Do I wish I had gone on and had a chance to win there? Of course I do. That could be the only better thing that I could think of.
The 1978 season ended on a bitter note when a faction of car owners founded their own race series. That winter, Championship Auto Racing Teams was formed to compete against the 500 sanctioning body, the United States Auto Club. The final 500 of the decade pitted racing legends against the next generation. The 1979 Speed Classic was to be one of the most competitive, but change and controversy clouded everything. The month of May started in the courtroom with an injunction by the United States Auto Club against the new league, CART.
I remember having to go to court downtown, and John Frasco, was our attorney. And here we were with great drivers, and potentially Penske cars couldn't even run the race. And I remember the judge finally said we couldn't. It wasn't about Penske not being able to be in the race. It was about people like Mears and Unser and people like that wouldn't be able to qualify and do their business. And we were given a temporary restraining order so that we were lifted the injunction, I guess it was.
On the racetrack, officials feared another jump in speeds. So USAC reduced the boost on the turbochargers by another 10 miles an hour. That didn't stop Jim Hall from creating an ultra-innovative design called the Chaparral. With Al Unser at the wheel, the ground effects car ran as good as it looked. No longer a Penske pilot, Tom Sneva tried to be the first to win 3 straight poles. It looked like the Sugar Ripe Prune Special might make history. Then 27-year-old Rick Mears rolled out of pit lane.
I was the last car in line to go out that had a shot, and I think everybody had kind of conceded the fact Sneva was on the pole. And until we ran and bumped him off, and Roger got a pretty good kick out of it. It was kind of a surprise, I think. It was a very big smile on Roger's face that day, coming down pit lane after the run.
And you had young Mears, who was, an off-road driver, and came in and really stuck it to him, really, when he sat on the pole. I think that was a very telling day that we had attracted and hired one of the greatest race drivers to be at Indianapolis.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engine.
Al Unser, the defending champion of the 500, the beautiful Pennzoil Chaparral #2, leads the first lap.
It's all Al from the start. The Chaparral is on rails. Unser is a sure threat to join the Four Timers Club. At the halfway point, a seal breaks on Unser's Cosworth engine.
And the black flag is being given to Al Unser. His car has begun smoking in the right rear again. There seemed to be a small show of flame.
After leading 85 laps, Al's Indy glory is cut short.
I could look in my mirror and see that I was in trouble. So it's one of those disappointments where you just say, another day at work, bad day at work.
Big brother Bobby takes the lead on lap 97.
And here is Rick Mears. He's going to try his teammate Bobby Unser, and indeed he's going to try to go low.
And it was time to go, and so we just started, picking the pace up. And I felt like we had to, we just made a couple of attempts at him at the time, and I felt like we had enough, if got positioned right to be able to get by him. I'm sure he doesn't think so, but I felt we did.
Now it's a battle between the heroes of racing's past and racing's future. Unser against Mears. Team Penske versus Team Penske.
We just had one instinct, and that's we wanted to win, and we do anything it took to win.
Bobby Unser looks like he's going to head in for a pit stop. Bobby Unser indeed heading. No, something's wrong in Bobby Unser's car. Something appears to be wrong with Bobby Unser's machine.
Bobby loses a gear, and with it the lead. Another Indy victory snatched from the Unser family.
The fourth gear broke in the transmission. The one thing that you just never break. But that one, I think of all the races as far as really just being sad. That's the race that I was the saddest at or for dropping out of.
That was a pretty good feeling. On one hand, on the other hand, it wasn't, because he had a problem. That's why we got by him. So I didn't get to earn the pass, and which I would much rather have done it that way than the other way.
Now Mears must endure the toughest 25 laps of his career.
Once I got past the pit entrance, then I knew if all four wheels fell off the thing, I could slide the rest of the way. And that was the only time I let myself feel we had the race won.
And the checkered flag is given to Rick Mears of Bakersfield, California. His hand in the air, acknowledging victory. Rick Mears, the winner of the 63rd 500-mile race.
It was a great feeling, it really was. I mean, you just can't explain it. It's something, you can take whatever you've been the most excited about all your, throughout your lifetime and just, double, triple, whatever. You just really can't explain it.
After a 7-year sabbatical, Roger Penske returns to victory lane with a storybook finish. It's also the first win for the Penske Works chassis.
Every time you go there, you can't believe it because, it's just so monumental. The crowd, the feeling, and, for my company, for my family, and obviously for these drivers and teams, it was, a dream come true. And I've never said that one was better than the other, but the 79 victory with Mears after having a drought, after you've won, you can't come back here and do anything else. So anything else but winning is certainly a big, big letdown.
If ever a driver looked over the entire field and decided where he wanted to go, it would have to be Roger Penske's team, because they are state of the art. They're exactly what you would want, what I would want if I were a new driver coming in.
The crowd is cheering A.J. Foyt as he coasts over the line and waves to the crowd. A.J. Foyt, no power at all in that car, comes across the line.
Four-time winner A.J. Foyt brought the crowd to its feet with a courageous second-place finish. A new pack-up rule was put into place in 1979. During caution periods, the pace car would now lead a bunched-up field with safety and better competition in mind. The 1970s redefined racing. Technology reshaped it. A new level of competition created faster speeds and famous faces. A mix of innovation and necessity sparked a revolution, and the Speedway was witness to it all. Dynamic designs and broken barriers transformed the sport forever. While the Speedway lost many close friends, it gained several new ones. drivers and teams who would build the foundation of the 500's future. While the 70s have come and gone, their impact is far from over. An era defined by drama and danger will long be remembered as a decade of legends.